And good morning, good morning. This is your host, Dr. Terry Mason, the show, The Doctor in the House. And it's always heard right here on AM 1690 Wvon. And we had a great show last week where we had the second generation business owners in. And I'm going to continue that. So I'm going to be holding calls this morning. And if people just have something they want me to talk about, just leave it with the board operator so they can leave it up as a message, and I will take it. But I want to continue our conversation because we had such a great conversation last week with our guests. Those of you who tuned in last week knew that we had Mr. Joseph Caldwell Jr. that was in the studio, the second generation owner for Taylor Wright Cleaners, and we had the second generation of Kenny's Ribs, third generation of Leak Funeral Homes, and second generation of the Imperial Carpet family, all in the studio talking about second generation businesses. And the reason I did that on second generation businesses, and we're going to continue that conversation, is because there is an important need for us to continue, particularly as we've lost as many businesses as we have lost in our community. If we do not begin to think about how we're going to increase the amount of businesses in our community, I mean, we have got to think about how we're going to hire ourselves. I'm not letting everybody else off the hook, but we got to stop. We got to stop with this welfare type mentality. We have the power to do. We have a $2 trillion economy. It's not that we don't have money. We just don't spend it with each other. And I know, and believe me, I'm more than understand the issues around the issues around some black businesses. But the reason I did this last week was because it makes better sense to me to have a conversation about how we make the businesses we have better than to think about only focusing on new businesses. Because to bring a new business into fruition, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, we absolutely should, we should encourage it. But if we could take the businesses that we have that have survived 30, 40, 50 years and make those businesses better, move them out of the merchant mentality where we have one or two and we are totally consumed trying to run that, as opposed to putting in the kind of systems that are necessary so that, Taco Bell is not one thing. Dunkin' Donuts is not one thing. And I have to believe that we have the intellectual capacity. Now we may have some challenges on some other levels, but I think now is the time to talk about what would it take to bring those businesses to the next level. And so in studio today, and before I get to that, before I introduce my guest, I want to remind everybody that we're going to have at Trinity. I'm a Trinitarian. And we're going to have our third annual Party with a Purpose. And the Party with a Purpose is that we select an agency. And the agency that we selected last year and the agency that we're working with this year is a Safe Haven and Mercy's Home for Boys and Girls. And I've been over to Safe Haven. And the one right over there on Roosevelt Road, where we have a lot of our people who are homeless, who don't have any kind of resources whatsoever. And Safe Haven, and these are sometimes mothers with children, and these are places, this is a place where they feed people, they're trying to do some culinary arts skills so they can train people how to do it. They have some contracts with the city where they're using folks that these could not otherwise get these jobs to do some landscaping and cleaning up and things of that nature. So our Party with a Purpose is coming up, and that party is going to be on June 3rd, and it'll be at the church. And we are also collecting for a Safe Haven stuff for people, so even when they do get a home, when you get a new apartment, there's a lot you have to, it's just an apartment. So we're asking people to bring things like to buy things like shower curtains, face cloths, bath towels, paper towels, toilet papers, Ziploc bags, plates, forks, spoons, plastic drinkware, garbage bags, Other things like transit cards, printing paper, and a microwave oven for some of the in-house residents. Personal items, diapers, sizes 2, 3, 4, and 5, soap, toothbrushes, toothpastes, deodorant, lotions, combs, and cleaning supplies like bleach, pine sol, mops, and brooms. And you can bring any of those, or you can make a donation directly at the church. But we asked for this. This is the pastor's birthday, but he, instead of having just a party, we call it a party with a purpose. So this is the purpose that we're having this party for. And there are a lot of things that are going on. You can always go to trinitychicago.org, or actually you can still use the old URL, tucc.org, and it will direct you to our new website. But there's a lot of things that are going on, and we're asking all high school seniors, let's get serious on Sundays, learn what it takes to increase your undergraduate success. So we've got a couple things happening on the 5th and happening on the 26th to talk about that, and the Green Revolution as well. And of course, we want to make certain that, and our party with a purpose is not just, this is a party in the church. So who will be featuring at that party is Kenyon Harold, who is a Grammy Award-winning trumpet player who actually wrote a lot of the music for the Miles Davis movie that's come out. Ron Baker will be the master of ceremonies. Reggie Reg will be the comedian. Special guests, we have other special musical guests that'll be there, as well as DJs Focus, DJ Chaos, and our beatboxer CQ. It's open for everybody, all ages. Come and have a great time, and whatever we can use to donate for that is what we're going to do. The other thing that I'd like to let you know that we're going to continue with this series today, and we talked about business last week. This week, I thought it was important. We have a number of other things that I'm going to focus on and obviously welcome your comments about. But this week, we're going to be focusing on not only just the business, but the business is an outgrowth of a much larger, much larger, I don't want to say opportunity, but of much larger effort. Back in the early mid-'60s, a group of folks left Chicago and other parts of the country to establish an external solution for the problems that we as black people in this country were having. And that feeling was because of where we were and what was going on, we needed to get someplace where we could begin, and I'll have our guests to describe this more, but to begin to take control of our environment. We don't have complete control of our environment here in America, as is witnessed by what we're seeing. And just parenthetically, I want to say that yes, we're seeing a lot of craziness right now, drive-by shootings and all kinds of other things. But I want to just say, and I appreciate that Mark started this conversation, that what we're seeing today isn't something that happened today. What we're seeing today is something that has happened and been placed into motion many years ago. And what we're seeing now is the fruits of it. Because we're such a right now kind of people, we don't understand oftentimes that what's happening today probably started more than 50 years ago. And we've been doing a lot of lecturing just talking about housing policy that created the ghettos that we lived in and created the economic conditions that we lived in, and policies around social services. In fact, I was just talking to one of the members of our church who was a social worker back during the early 60s, and she talked about how she used to make these house visits because at that time, women were incentivized to have more children. The more children you had, the more money you had, but you could get from the state. But at the same time, you couldn't have a man in the house. So not that, I don't know if these children were supposed to appear by immaculate conception, but nevertheless, you cannot, this is a family destroying policy. That's what that policy did. And when you destroyed families 40 years ago or so, and now we've got the tail end, or actually the end of the people that were first generation up from the South, where we have more structure than we have today, that big mamas that really, and the daddies that were working, trying to keep things going, out of which the people like Joe Caldwell and other business leaders and the people that built Seaway Bank and all those other things came out of, that generation is all but gone, almost all but gone. And what we have now is the remnant of children raising children. Children who grew up like weeds in some of these projects, never seeing, generations of people never seeing anybody get up to go to work, never being on any schedule. So when we see a lot of what we see today, the irresponsibility that we see today, this was put back in motion a long time ago, and it is not due to what we do or what we see today, and the kind of thinking, the kind of attitudes, the sorts of things that we see spewing from the mouths of many of our young people. That's not their fault. It is the fault of, it's not anybody's fault. We gotta, I shouldn't say anybody's fault, that's not true. What I would go back to say is that we forget our history in this country. We don't talk about our history in this country. And if we talked about our history in this country, there would be no way we could do this without looking at the policies, the economic policies that created a lot of these conditions. And there are a number of, even back before the 60s, we have to remember that during the slavery times, our families were broken then. Brothers and sisters would be sold to different slave owners. So the fact that we were able to keep anything together after a horrific experience like that is an amazing situation to me. So I want to now bring my brother Yosef, Yosef
Ben Asiel.
Ben Asiel.
Yes, sir.
Ariel, I'm thinking of your brother, to discuss a bit more. And Prince has talked about this a bit on the show, but I thought it was important to bring this next generation because all we see is such negativity in press and on television, but to know that there are young people out there who are trying to weave some social sense of spirituality and to create a way for us to have the right kind of guideposts. Mm-hmm. Because whether we have the money or not, if we don't have the right kind of guideposts that govern our behaviors, we're still going to be lost. So with that, Brother Yosef.
Shalom, shalom, brother. First and foremost, giving all honor and praise to the God of creation, creator of the universes and the heavens, Yah Yisrael. I want to thank all the ancestors who came before me, who have made transition, are currently living, who made this a possibility. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's, the Ben Ammi's, my personal father, Prince Asiel Ben Israel, and you, Dr. Terry Mason, who's been instrumental in my growth and my development. But everything you're saying is right on point. And as we have this conversation about economics and overcoming economic deprivation, we have to understand that goes along with that has to be the building of infrastructure. See, when we first started, that's why you have to know your history, like you said, because that is critical and vital to our ending this oppression and having a resurrection of us as a people and a liberation of us as a people. We have to understand when we first started creating these businesses that they were to create economic resources so that we can continue to build infrastructure and institutions that help proliferate a certain mind and help perpetuate a certain culture. And that's what we have to get back to. Now we've gotten to the point that we create businesses for our own personal wealth. And it has no connection or relativity to nothing as a whole for us as a people. So as we study and we learn and grow and develop as young men and women, we have to reach back to our ancestors. We have to reach out to our forefathers and our foremothers who have paved the way that can help and instill the necessary provisions that allow us to grow in a manner that we as men and women can reach that spirituality that we need. Because like you said, we already have a $1.3 trillion GDP, us as black people in America. But what are we doing with it? Well, we have the necessary economics to already end our oppression or help facilitate the end of our oppression. But the thing is, we have to recalibrate this moral and spiritual compass so that we know how to implement the necessary things to create this realm that we need. So like you said, that My father and other fathers and mothers who left America in the 1960s repatriated back to Israel because they understood that it had to be an external model for the internal solution that we faced in America. We needed a place that we can outline parameters that help perpetuate a culture that will be beneficial to life and to living life. Because we're the most God-fearing people on this planet, as in rhetoric, but when it comes to application of God, we're null and void. Everything we do is contrary to life, which is contrary to God. If we serve the God of life, who gives us life to perpetuate life, to preserve life, and proliferate life, while all our doings contrary to that, whether it be the food that we eat, whether it be the conversations that we have, whether we conduct ourselves with other men and other women, how we portray ourselves, the clothes we wear, all these things are contrary to life. So I'm saying it's not just about the money if we don't understand the spirituality that goes along with that. And so that's why I commend you, Dr. Terry Mason, because you understood that as a revolutionary and as a student of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, that you had got to a point that you understood what you were doing as a physician and as a surgeon wasn't the solution for our people. You were cutting on people and you were having numbers of successful surgeries, but it wasn't ending the problem that put them in the emergency room or put them in the surgical room in the first place. And you understood within your own self that you had to go through a catharsis and an elevation as a man of God, that you had to do something that was more life-producing. And that's when you decided that I can't cut on anybody any longer and perpetuate this death mentality without giving them solutions to live, which is the vegan diet and other holistic ways and manners that perpetuates life. So I just want to start with that.
No, I think it's a great place to start, you see, because it is. And I want you to introduce the other young man that's with you.
Yes, sir. This is a brother that's been with me for a number of years, 10 to 11 years, but especially in this last year as we grow and develop. We're both in our mid-20s, 26 and 27. This is one of those young brothers that means so much to me because when I first started this trek as continue, like you said, this next generation, I'm not just second generation original soul vegetarian, but I'm second generation evolutionary, revolutionary, liberator of our people, which was the first mandate that was given to my father, Prince Asiel ben Israel. And this is one of those men that we had a relationship early in high school and we hung out and everything, but as I grew and developed, he understood my matriculation as it went to the world of spirituality and application of that spirituality. And this last year, we've been traveling all over the country, Atlanta and Chicago and all other different places, and teaching and instilling into our generation the importance of understanding the place that we are in now. And this brother Daniyel, he's been right by my side, for the last 12 to 15 months. And we've been working hard, and I've been working him hard. He ain't been able to get no sleep or hang out or nothing, but he's been rolling real tough for me. And I just want to introduce him, Brother Daniyel.
How you doing? My name is Daniyel, Ammi, and I would like to give all praises and honor to the Most High and all the ancestors before me as well. I got to thank my brother Yosef, because just through our transition and our growth alone, it was just like a natural thing for me. It was nothing that I just picked up on it, as he was growing and learning everything that he was. I just received that by second nature, and I had to analyze what I was doing and what was going on around me as well, and noticing, what I was eating, how I was feeling at certain times, and then how it was connected to the lack of knowledge and information that I have of myself. And once I started to learn those things and apply those things, that was the major thing. Because like we all know, and we say, oh, I know this, I know that, especially going back and forth with your parents, but the actual lack of the application of it would not produce those results. So, again, just me going through the process and just starting to apply the things that I was learning and seeing those results and then seeing how I was able to ascend myself to a higher level of thinking and feeling, and now I can perpetuate that onto my peers around me as well. So it's kind of like a chain reaction.
What do your peers say when you guys come and try to talk to them? How do you approach them, and what's the mindset of that you find that you have to really work with?
It's a dichotomy between the two, because you have our youth that understands that something is wrong, and you have our youth that understands that there are problems that's been persistent for longer than their short lifespan that dates back hundreds of years. The thing is putting them in an environment that they can continually perpetuate it. See, I thought at first when I was coming with these messages that I had to kind of curtail a message detail to our generation and make it more relevant and try to modify what I was coming with, but understanding and growing and talking and having our conversations, the only way possible to come and reach our youth is through truth. So as I grew and developed, I understand there's the only way to combat the deception and the lies that have been presented and they've been bombarded with for their whole lives is to only come with truth. Let that be a beacon of light to open their eyes and their awareness to their situation. But they've been receptive to what we've been saying and what we're teaching. But the problem is having something, an environment that they can live in. And so
on a consistent basis,
on a
too.
consistent, that's the critical thing, because they come around us. And even my brother, he had problems with that at first. When we're together, it's one thing, but when he has to go face the realities of his world, it's a whole other thing, because you get put back in survival mode. So it seems like when you've been used to doing something for so long, when your back is against the wall, you already automatically revert to what you've been doing before. So the thing that I'm trying to do more than anything is create an environment that's conducive to the mindset that we need to produce life, and that's conducive to life. So what does that look like? First and foremost, having a setting where the elders and the younger generation can converse in a civilized manner. That both can tell their sides of the story and understand the connectivity and the relativity between the two. Because if we don't have any cohesiveness between the two, we'll never solve this thing. We're the only people that from next generation that we lose what the first generation that preceded them had done. It's like we start over from scratch each and every generation, and we keep thinking these things are new. But as we study the scriptures, we understand that the King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. But we don't understand that because we think it's just our first time going through it, and we don't understand the importance of having a relationship with our parents and our parents' parents and the parents' parents to understand that this has already happened. So how do we get out of this cycle of death and devastation? So we have to have that conversation first and foremost. Secondly, we have to create dynamics and institutions that allow us to contextualize the children that we're giving birth to, a new type of mind, a new type of reality. Because we can't use the same system that was created to be a destruction of us and that God gene to be our salvation. That won't happen. Like you said, an external solution for an internal problem. We have to create something outside of this realm, and I mean not just outside America, the country, but the social system of America. Its very fabric is one that is contrary to us elevating to that God mind and the activation of that God heart, which allows us to proliferate truth in all of our doings. That has to be created.
Well, we're going to take a short commercial break. And I mean, this is, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Doctor in the House with Dr. Terry Mason. And I want you to hear these very prolific young people. I mean, under 27 years old. How do you use
26.
26.
Yes,
Under 27. That's still under 27.
Yes, sir.
But, and you're
I'm 27.
27. So, okay, 27 and under.
Yeah.
But I want, because young men are painted with such an ugly paintbrush today, that it was important for me to begin to think about how I bring these young men, second generation business owners, second generation of nation builders,
Yes,
for people to listen to. So you're listening with Dr. Terry Mason and the Doctor in the House. We'll be right back with more right after this.